Hi guys, just want to start off with saying that we now officially have a new member to our family. So much has happened. This video is well overdue. We ended up having a little baby girl. So, because obviously for a pregnancy, we didn't know what we were having. So we've now got a little girl. So that was a massive shock. I remember from my last video, I had 2 sweeps. So I had my second sweep, nothing happened. I had my appointment at 40 weeks, so baby was still not here. I was getting bigger by the day. I was struggling quite a bit as well. My second sweep that I had didn't work. So the doctor said to me that I needed to be induced ASAP. She was actually quite shocked that the previous doctor actually let me go. She said because I was getting so big that the risks were getting higher. What they explained to me was the induction I was having was a pessary. On the Monday, I had my bed booked. So at this point, I was currently 40 weeks and three or 4 days. I had my pessary put in at about 12 o'clock and was just waiting. I was being monitored, nothing was really happening. Then it came on to about, I think 8 o'clock at night. They allowed my partner to still stay with me. So I started getting contractions. I was contracting more than what I was supposed to, so I was constantly contracting. It wasn't slowly either, it was just one after the other, and I was really struggling with it. There was nothing they could do apart from take the pessary out. So at this point I was a bit gutted because I knew that if once the pessary comes out, sort of things would then slow down. I was told I had to stay on the monitor, so I was on the monitor. Baby was absolutely fine, it was just me. So like I say, I was over contracting, but I wasn't dilating, which was the issue. About 6 hours later, I had it taken out. I just hit rock bottom. It was really strange how it happened. I think it was very early hours in the morning, maybe about 7 o'clock in the morning, and I went to the toilet and I realised that I lost a lot of mucus and blood. So obviously I rang my alarm bell and I was really worried because I thought something was, badly going wrong. So HCA come through and she said, it's fine, I'll go get a nurse. I was waited for ages and I'm in hysterics because the contractions just heightened from, double. And I was still contracting loads, and the nurse said that, they think I need to get to delivery suite. Then it got worse because I started throwing up, and I just said, I don't know what to do. I couldn't sit down because the pain was so bad, kept being sick. So they had to rush me around to delivery suite. And when I got there, I had my own room. They put me on gas and air, thank God, because I didn't have any other pain relief until this point. When I got round to delivery suite, they said, right, we need to check you, see how far you're dilated. I still wasn't dilated much at all. I was probably about 5 centimeters, maybe 6. It was very slow, yet my contractions were still one after the other, and they were getting progressively worse. So the gas and air did help to a degree. So the next step was all the doctors came in, introduced themselves. I also had a midwife and a student with me as well, so I had extra help. My partner was here through the whole thing. So then the doctor came out and said, we need to think about breaking your waters. So I was thinking, oh gosh, something could go really wrong at this point. So I'm still contracting, doing everything I need to do. And it weren't till probably a few minutes into before the actual doctor arrived to come break my waters went on their own. And it was really strange because with my first daughter, I never got to feel that go on naturally because they had to break my waters with her. So it just went, and it went everywhere. And I said to them, I'm so sorry. You could hear it going off the bed, on the floor, TMI, but it was a lot of fluid. So I thought finally things are happening. Unfortunately, the pain got even worse, which I didn't think it could, and I started to feel a bit unwell. So I started being sick again, and I started really shaking. Like I was literally, my hands were shaking like I had a fever. So they checked my temperature, and my temperature was through the roof. So obviously alarm bells were ringing, my waters have just broken, so obviously risks of infections are then increased. So this point they said, right, we need to get loads of bloods done. They were then treating me for sepsis. With pain relief, it got to the point that I needed something more, and they offered me to have an epidural. Now, I never had any pain relief with my first, and I really wish I did, and it got to the point where it was too far gone, so I never had anything. But this time round, they offered it to me, so I was like, I need it. And my partner was freaking out a little bit because they explained, you know, I've got to have this big needle, it's got to go in my spine and so on. So he was freaking out, whereas I was like, give me something. So they came round, done the epidural, didn't even feel a thing. That he said he was quite shocked that I didn't even flinch, but you know, the contractions, I was exhausted and I was in just so much pain, I needed something. So the epidural worked absolute wonders. I had it on a button, so when I felt like things were getting more painful, I'd keep pressing it, but obviously it would only release the drug when it's been a matter of time. I think it was every 20 minutes that the button would then work, so you could press it. So sometimes if the light came on, my partner would press it for me because I just needed constant pain relief. Through this time of having the epidural, obviously my legs got numb, so I couldn't feel anything. I couldn't go for a week, couldn't go to the toilet. Obviously I've got an ostomy and it's still gonna work even though I'm in labour and I'm in so much pain. I'm not really eating because I was also nil by mouth. I was getting to the point where my bag was getting quite full. So I said to the midwives, I need to empty my bag. Midwives don't really deal with this sort of thing. And she did explain to me, look, we haven't really come across this. What should we do? Now, I couldn't get up to go to the toilet because my legs were numb, and I couldn't really sit in the bed and do it because I'm, you know, big pregnancy bump. I thought, this is not going to work. They all lifted me up together and put me on a wheelchair to wheel me into my toilet that I had in my actual room. Now, the issue that I also had was I hadn't put any odour eliminator in it, so it was gonna stink. So that was why I had to go into the toilet. Now, my partner, once he got me into the wheelchair, he vacated. He went and got some food. He said, I'm not gonna be around for that, which is fine. He's a bit OCD like that. So the midwife came in and I said, no, it's fine, I can do it, just give me a bowl, some tissues, I'll be fine. But bless her, she stayed in there with me. I was emptying it out. I kept apologising for the smell because if she's not used to it or she doesn't really know, you know, what's going to happen, it's going to be a bit of a shock to her. So, I mean, I was fine with it. I said, give me some deodorant, we'll spray the room out. But it was very pungent, unfortunately. It was slightly embarrassing, and through this whole process, that moving me from A to B, more water was coming out of me. So I had a lot of fluid. So not only did my waters break and go everywhere, it kept coming out. So from when they lifted me up and put me onto the chair, it went all over the chair. So obviously I then emptied my bag, come back in, then they all had to lift me back onto the bed, and as soon as they lifted me up to put me onto bed, more water went all over the floor, and I kept apologising. I said, I'm so sorry, you've literally just cleaned everything up. Started to get comfortable, the epidural was kicking in. They came round and I think they said, right, you're dilating a bit more. So even though things were progressing, it was happening quite slowly. So I was still not fully dilated, and they had to keep thinking about, you know, I'm getting weaker and weaker. It's coming up to the 24-hour mark and still no baby. So there was a handover and I had a different doctor, and she was absolutely fantastic. She was adamant that she was getting this baby out of me without a C-section. So, you know, things are going on. I'd been nil by mouth for a few hours. I hadn't eaten. I was getting extremely weak and tired. I was on fluids. I was on antibiotics because they were still testing me for sepsis. I had my epidural. There was just drugs everywhere. So not only did I feel like things weren't happening, I also unfortunately felt like a patient, and I didn't want to feel like a patient being pregnant. It's a bit of a weird one for me. I think being in and out of hospital for so many years, and, you know, this isn't a medical issue. I was pregnant, I was having a baby. The last thing I wanted to do was feel like a patient, having drugs in me. Unfortunately, it had to go that way because, you know, things weren't progressing. Sorry, I had a baby to attend to. Where was I? So it came to about 7 o'clock in the evening and I was finally fully dilated. So this doctor was like, right, we need to get her sorted, we need to get her into theatre. I just said, no, you're not doing a C-section, it's not happening. And she was like, no, that's not what we're gonna do. So what the plan was is that obviously she needed for me to start pushing. And I did say I sort of had an urge, but it was hard to tell because of the epidural, and I couldn't feel anything. So I had this new midwife. She was gunning me and saying, push, and I was pushing all the way, and I was like, I don't know if I'm doing anything, I can't feel it, I'm so sorry. I just kept apologising literally throughout my whole labour, whether it was my water's going everywhere or I'm not pushing hard enough. So I was pushing and I was like, is anything happening? And she was like, yes, baby is coming, I can see a head. It wasn't fully, baby wasn't fully right down, but baby was moving. So the doctor said, there is no way you're getting this baby out on your own. So she explained that I needed to have forceps. And I was thinking, oh God, I haven't done my research, I don't really know much about all this. So they said forceps is going to have to be the way. Now, like I said, I don't really know much about it. Plus, I was heavily medicated. They gave me a consent form to say, we're going to take you to theatre, we're going to do all this. And I said, yes, it's absolutely fine. So through all this, I'm still pushing. And then the midwife said to me, did you have a lot of heartburn during your pregnancy? I said, yes, I did actually. And she went, baby's got a lot of hair. And I was like, oh my God, you can see the head. And that, for me, I was like, oh, thank God, like the end is nearing. So they prepped me, took me around to theatre. They did also say that they needed to take me to theatre just in case I needed a C-section. Went to theatre, there was people everywhere. There was so many, at least 10 plus people. My partner had to go in a separate room to be gowned up, put scrubs on. They had to give me some more epidural, some stronger stuff that would last longer. At this point, they were still saying, right, there's a contraction coming. So I don't think I explained that on the monitor that I was on, they could see when my contraction was coming. So because I couldn't feel it because of the epidural, they said, right, you need to push now. And I was pushing as hard as I think I was. And it got to the point where I think I only done 2 pushes and baby was out. But obviously I don't really know what's going on. There's people everywhere, I'm in pain, I'm being sick, I'm drugged up. What had happened at one point is on the first push while I was in theatre, I pushed and baby had come out, but her arm had actually come out as well. So they was like, hang on, and they had to push her arm back in. I couldn't really feel anything, so thank God. So they had to push her back in. So they said, right, they need this one last push and baby is going to be out. So her head was out, and I can't remember if my partner looked. I think he did, but not a lot, because I think he was a bit squeamish about this sort of thing. So last push, baby come out, came on to me, and the whole thing about this pregnancy was that we didn't know what we were having. Now, my partner, David, his job was to tell everybody what we were having. Yes, and we had to explain that as soon as we got into theatre, that, oh, don't forget that Dad needs to explain, or Dad needs to say what we're having. So one of the doctors like, well, go on then, Daddy, what are we having? And I couldn't see anything, so I didn't know what we're having. And he literally turned around to me and was like, it's a girl. And I was like, oh my God, it was such a shock, because throughout everything, with me being so big and the way I was carrying and, all the mother's tales or whatnot, everyone was adamant we were having a boy. And I think everyone almost was sure that we were having a boy. We were sure we were having a boy. And then obviously turned out to be a girl. It was such a shock, but we were so happy. So many things that were happening. So as soon as she got put onto me, she had all this markings all over her face because of the forceps. It put so much pressure on her face. It's bruised it, grazed it. It was awful. And I also thought she had a cleft palate. So her lips was like pushed together, and I was saying to my partner that she's got a cleft palate. Oh my God, she's got a cleft palate. We didn't know this from the scans. And he was like freaking out, what the hell's a cleft palate? Because he didn't know. Someone else said she's not crying because she's got a tongue tie, which apparently it wasn't in the end. She was just quiet. And then it turned out she didn't have a cleft palate. The forceps had literally just squished her face so much that she had bruising all down the side of her face. The middle bit of her lips were just so pushed together that they stuck together, which I'll insert a picture. So painful, bless her. But obviously they had to use the forceps to pull her out because I was not getting her on her own. Now, while she was getting checked out, all I could hear was we needed more stitches. Now, I wasn't aware that they had to cut you to do forceps. So I was a bit like, I don't really want to know what's going on down there. I'm just glad baby's out. So what had happened is that they had to do an episiotomy. So they had to cut, I think it was downwards between the vagina and the back passage. So that was a bit frightening because, like I say, I didn't really know what was going to happen. And I think also because her arm came out, it tore a bit further. While she was getting checked, the one thing I really wanted to know was how much she weighed, because obviously they were measuring me, I was over measuring, they said I'm gonna have a big baby, and you know, the one thing was I wanted to know how accurate that it was. On the Friday, when I had my last scan, she was approximately measuring at 9 pounds 1. So that's a big baby in my eyes. They did say baby could be bigger, baby could be smaller, we could be completely wrong with all these measurements, and it was nothing. So I said to them, I was like, so what does she weigh? And they went, she weighs 9 pounds 6. And I was like, oh my God, I couldn't believe it. No wonder why I couldn't get her out on my own. No wonder why I was so big. So I know. So all along, she was a big baby. So everything was accurate. Everything was how it was supposed to be. After I had been stitched up, I had to go round to the recovery room because my temperature was still up. Obviously baby came around with me, thank God. They were a bit concerned because she did have a temperature to start with, and then they started mentioning neonatal. I did have a little cuddle with her, and then they cleaned her up, give her a hat and all the normal stuff that they do. So we went round to recovery, had skin to skin, it was beautiful. They did then say to me, you know, what we could do about feeding. Now, I done a lot of colostrum collection, and I did bring it with me when I got induced, and they kept it in a little freezer and they warmed everything up, tried to give her some. Now, my partner was the first one to give her some, and she took to it really well. She was very hungry, clearly, and she took the whole syringe, and it was lovely to know that it actually came to some good use. So obviously I was in recovery for a little while. Then I got took round to my room, everything was fine, my temperature finally came down. So then he called his mum, because my daughter was with her, and they both came up. At this point, they still didn't know whether we had a boy or girl. Sophie was just over the moon that she got a little baby sister. She'd made her a card, and she quickly wrote on the floor, sister, she added it on. It was just so sweet. So after that, they had some cuddles and said hello. And the big question was, what have you called her? Right from the start, we automatically knew what girl's name we were going to have. She's called April. It was just something that we really, really liked, and it stuck with us for so long. And David said there's April O'Neil from Ninja Turtles. He grew up watching them, so that was like a little childhood thing for him. But the issue we had was that I was due on the 1st of August, and obviously she came well into August, so she came on the 6th of August in the end. So she was 5 days overdue, and everyone kept saying, why have you not called her August? We just loved the name April. It just sounded so sweet. It was lovely. We'd never really heard of anyone calling someone April. There's not anyone around us that has that name, so that was why we chose it. And I think it sounded really nice with his last name too, which you have to think about. And we were just set on that. Even the midwives kept saying, oh, April. But it's all good. At the end of the day, we love the name. It's really cute. Hopefully you guys like it as well. That's pretty much labour. I probably missed a couple of things out because, like I say, so much happened. It was a very, very long labour. For an overall picture, she was 5 days overdue. She was £9.6. I had epidural for pain relief, and I had to have forceps and an episiotomy. So a lot has still happened since then. So currently she's now 14 weeks old, so it has been a while. I had to see my gastro doctor afterwards because it was so close to the back passage. I had some weird sensations and I was passing blood after I had her too. So there was a big question round whether the reversal was ever going to happen because of the damage. So that's still an ongoing thing. I might have to go into a bit more detail in another video. I just wanted to do a video to explain the labour and how everything happened and how things are going. Any questions, please ask me. If you want to know any more details about the labour, anything a bit more in detail, I will try my best to answer. I will see you in my next video. Bye guys. Who's that? Can you see yourself? Huh? Can you see yourself? See, who's that pretty girl in there? Ooh. Who's that pretty girl? Hi? That's you. Aren't you pretty? So much to see. You can see the birdies in the tree. Can you? Oh.